Welcome to this edition of ThePrint Softcover. Today we are going to talk about a very fascinating book that talks about seemingly opposite ideas of success and happiness. And to know more about the book, we have with us the author of the book, Ramesh Venkateswaran. Sir, you've worked across multiple sections. You've worked for a long time in the corporate world. You have also been the director of a boarding school. You are currently teaching, and you've also worked with Vishwas. Since 1991, you've worked for volunteering with about mental health in India. Welcome to ThePrint Softcover, sir.
Thank you very much, and looking forward to this. Lovely. Nice to meet you.
So first of all, we'll sort of have an unveiling of the book that we are going to discuss today. This is the book that we are going to talk about today. So my first question, sir, is that the title says The Happiness Trail, and it says a roadmap to success, right? And I began my interview by saying that these seem to be very opposite ideas. So would you like to comment on that first?
Yeah, interestingly, while they are contradictory or opposite, actually, I think all of us believe they are actually complementary. And I think that's how this whole thing came. So the trail is because a trail is not a fixed path. It's a path that you sort of meander through and you explore yourself. But yeah, why do I have this roadmap to success? And so I've gone through multiple iterations on this book. But essentially, what I found is they are actually contradictory when people think they're complementary. And the reason I say this is over my 20 years, this seed germinated in me when I went to head a school in Ooty. It was my alma mater. So, there was a lot of heart in the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And when I was dealing with youngsters, and then of course my IIM teaching, I asked myself, what are we doing in life? From the day we are born, we are running a rat race. And first of all, actually, the parents run the race for you. In my book, I mentioned this. You're never quite sure who's running this race. Is it the parent who's running it or the kid who's running it? Mm-hmm. But ultimately, what are we trying to do? We want to get into the best kindergarten. We want to get in marks. We want a CBSE. We want this. And these are all metrics or measures of success. And I asked myself, and I would talk to my groups, why are we doing this? Because we believe these indicators of success will lead to happiness. So at a very basic level, we are actually looking to be happy. And we believe 99% in CBSE, IIT, JEE, IIM, AIMS, XYZ, good job. All this are success. And if I am successful, I will be happy. So essentially what I said is, in our minds, we have it, success equal to happiness. But what I realized is, as we looked at, and we found that there were a lot of successful people who were not happy. And the book is full of examples. My 30 years of counseling led me to believe that I think we need to change the paradigm or change the shift. And therefore, instead of saying success equal to happiness equal to success. And therefore, if I'm happy, I'm successful. And therefore, do we chase happiness or do we chase success? So that is why I've put this as the happiness trail, a roadmap to success. And the 5 I's that I recommend, I believe are general prescription, irrespective of how you define success. Do I want to be $1 million in the bank? Do I want to be the best painter? Do I want to be the best mother? All of them are measures of success individually. And what I believe is, if you follow these, you will meet your target of success and also be happy. So that's really what I have in mind, or I had in mind while writing this book.
Okay. So the other thing that, since you've mentioned institutions that you've worked at, one of which IIM is again a very premier institute. Like India conducts so many exams, people get into this whole race. They begin training early on to get into an institution like that, right? Because again, like you mentioned, that for a lot of us, I think 90% of us, getting a good job is part of being successful. Whether or, everything else that the job brings is also a part of it, but getting into. And you've worked with students a lot. And you've also mentioned this in the book about, you're working with students and how you've come up. So a couple of things from here. First, how do you think the book is relevant for the time that we are living in? I won't say 2022 per se, but in the kind of, let's say, the last decade or so, how it's relevant. And the other, because you have been part of institutions that are seen as markers of excellence, be it in terms of getting educated, getting a degree, or in terms of finally getting a job. So could you tell us more about the kind of pressure that you've seen students struggle through, despite being the best, let's say, already? The fact that they are in that school or in that, institution means they are best of, let's say, a percentage of people already. But of course, there are enough stories and enough incidents and enough people saying that, but we still feel pressurized to keep performing. And you have also mentioned, obviously, about the pressure to perform. So, if you could tie that up.
Yeah, this is the most relevant question, and you can go on and on about this because there are too many things that come into play in this. So let's look at it this way. There are two parts to it. One is, how is this book relevant to different people? The second is, having taught and having been luckily, I think it's good luck that I got into an IIT and I got into an IIM. I don't think I have any aspirations to my brilliance, because you realize that this world is full of excellent people. You're just lucky to be one of the 1,000 people who got it. I keep telling my students, remember, you're just one more shampoo or one more toothpaste on a shelf. It's not that the other toothpaste and shampoos are bad. You are lucky that you happen to come from a good brand as opposed to maybe another one who's not. So let's look at it this way. So let me take the first part, the relevance. Yeah. What I realized, and this is a very interesting question that you have asked, because I've got my own hypothesis and theory into all of this. Two things happen. One is, see, all of us spend a lot of time in our lives, especially in the organizational world, planning for the organization. You're doing your vision, your strategy, your 5-year plan. How much do we do it for our own selves? And why is it important? And this is why I think the why is the very important question. You see, what happens is, what I've learned, and again, the other thing I always tell people is, and it's in the book, that when you talk of happiness and success and all, immediately you talk about philosophers, social scientists, thinkers, and of course, the Gitas and the Bibles and the Qurans and all. I say that's called what I call the wisdom of the ages, the wisdom that has come from ages. My book is essentially what I call the wisdom of age, growing old. And therefore, I have distilled my personal life and thought back and, luckily introspected. So let's look at the first part. You see, what happens is, I have a certain goal. Now, till I'm about a teenager or then, my goals are largely set by my parents, especially in the Indian context. I'm not talking so much about the Western world. I'm talking about an Indian context. And as I've said in the book, they are putting pressure on us, and their pressures come from God knows wherever it comes. But essentially that happens. At 2022, I believe this is what I want in life. But what happens is, I am not the same person at 30, 40, 50, and 60. At 20, I have certain dreams, I have certain aspirations. I believe this is important because these are my role models. But at 30, let's say I'm a young married person. I'm a newly married guy. I have another person in my life. My worldview of life changes. At 40, I'm the father or mother of a 5-year-old, 8-year-old, and my responsibilities, my view changes. At 60, my view changes. So this is what I say, the measure of success, the metrics of success, which we hope will lead to happiness, they keep changing. But what happens is, we don't calibrate ourselves periodically. We don't calibrate ourselves periodically. And very often what happens is, at age 50 or 60, I have got something, and then I'm wondering, what am I doing with this? Because this doesn't mean anything more. I got my Mercedes, I got my BMW, but I've got a son or a daughter who's not happy, or my marital life is in a mess. And then I'm wondering what I'm doing. So the point I want to make is, relevance is, and this is why, one of the titles I had for this book was Your GPS to Success. And the GPS, so what is the difference between a compass and a GPS? A compass tells you this is north. Figure out how to reach there. But a GPS has two important input points you need to make it relevant. You must know where you're headed, but you must also know where you are. See, the GPS can only function when it has your current location. And what does the GPS do? The GPS tells you these are different ways to get to your path. So the GPS says this is the shortest, this is it. And what else does the GPS do? When you have an obstacle, a roadblock or something, it says, wait a minute, there is a diversion. These are 3-4 different ways. So my book is meant as a GPS, saying, look at your destination, you figure out where your destination is. But my guess is these 5 I's are fairly neutral in that all of them contribute to some level of happiness. So, and happiness, I'm assuming, is my ultimate goal in life. I mean, I'm working on that hypothesis. And therefore, to that extent, I'm saying that we need to relook at ourselves periodically. And whichever way we relook at it, these 5 I's won't go out of fashion. That's what I believe. The second part of it, I don't know what we can do about it. Yes, I studied I deal with a lot of students periodically. I enjoy it, as you might guess. And many of them, actually, this is my last lecture in my strategy class. So I keep telling myself, at least I have to console myself. My course is called PSM, Product Strategy and Management. Okay. And my 20th lecture is actually, I tell them it's still called PSM so that the admin will not catch me for deviating. I call it PSM, Personal Strategy and Management. And I say there's no difference between your management over there. And therefore, what many of them actually come back to me after the class and after years and tell me that, I still remember what you said in this class. Recently, I did a session for an alumni group, and I'm blown out of my mind, to be honest with you, because students said, in 2001, when you took this class, this is what I remember you said. And I follow this to the T, kind of a thing. So the pressure to perform and the pressure to conform, this is the challenge we have. And that is why that's why I say this is aimed at you as an individual. It's aimed as parents. If you're 40 to 50, you have a child or you're running a family of a teenager probably. Are you giving the right messages to your kids? If you're 65, 70, you're a grandparent, ideal to talk to your this is how the book germinated, actually. What are the 5 things you will tell your grandchildren to lead a happy life? So I think whether you or dealing with a family, how do I deal with pressures to perform and conform? And the IIMs and IITs are full of them. I mean, no question of that. Now, why does it happen? It happens because it's again, I've got another small framework in the book which talks about the problem starts from expectation and envy. And, does expectation lead to envy or does envy lead to expectation? These are some of the things we need to think about. But essentially what I'm saying is we need to take stock of ourselves. I'll just end with this last bit because I like this. It resonates with my students. You see, people of my generation, the 50s and the 60s, who are now in the 50s and 60s, I keep saying we were living in a world with a gently flowing stream. The stream, change happened in 20 years, 30 years. My parents were very proud of the fact that their refrigerator had not been changed for 20 years. My kids are looking at me and said, you haven't changed your refrigerator in 2 years. What's wrong with you? Possession and ownership was a matter of pride. And today you look at somebody, and this is not only in possessions. I'm often apprehensive of asking my friends, how's your wife or husband? Because I'm not quite sure they're still with them. This is a significant change that has happened in life. And I think this is very important for us to keep in mind. We were in a flow, and what I'm saying is we were in a gently flowing stream. You never went wayward. At best, you moved a little bit to one bank and you got back on the boat and you moved on, but life could never become a significant crisis. Today, I tell the generation, you are on a whitewater rafting in rapids. And you can, if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the competence, there are 2 things are like, you land up in a bank, you capsize, you fall into the water, you need to know how to get out of it. And therefore, today life has to be far more planned and far more thought about than people like me who are post 60. And that is where I feel these kinds of learnings are relevant.
So since you've talked about how you just said that, life is very different now it has more challenges, it has more struggles. And since you are somebody who's worked with mental health since 1991 is not really a time where India, I think, as a country, was open or aware about how important mental health is. We have obviously definitely moved ahead from that point where at least we now acknowledge. I wanted to know from you, since you've worked so long, in this field, that because you've also talked about it in your book where you're talking about physical health and mental health, how they are equally important here. So I want to know, do you think even now, despite all of the exposure, education, and at least discussions, if not enough discussions, but at least beginnings of conversations about mental health have begun, do you still think that in our country, we still don't prioritize it the same way we would prioritize our physical health? And when we are talking about happiness and success, where would we situate the focus on mental health today? Specifically among students, I think.
Okay. Valid question. If again, this is another thing I've learned in life. There are two ways I can compare. I can compare with what we were in 91 and where we are in 2021. I can compare where we are in 21 and where we should have been. This is the standard problem in India. You don't know how good we are now. Look at what happened when your grandparents were alive. I say that's good, but are we happy with where we are today? Sure, we have made a lot of progress. So when I look at 91 to today, I think we've made significant progress. What are my metrics or indicators? The indicators are 1991. I know how we started. We would be sitting, with nobody to come. Ours was a free service. We had no money to spend, so we would just put it in the daily engagement column and things like that. And our rate of progress of people coming in was very, very slow. Today, it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. We are very limited. We are very small in our operations. We are very focused. We do not do online counseling. We do not do internet counseling. We do only in-person counseling. And we believe that's our, area of competence and strength. But interestingly, in the last maybe 5-10 years, it's amazing when first question we ask is, how did you get to know about us? Now, of course, thanks to the internet, many people see the web and see our, when you say counseling center. But I would think 50% of the people who come to us have come on reference of people who have come to us, which means the stigma of talking about going for counseling is reducing. It could be through friends, it could be through colleagues, it could be through family. Stigma is normally first with family, then in your professional circle. Nobody wants to know that I went to a counselor and so on. But that has changed substantially, I would think. But having said that, I don't think we pay adequate attention to mental health as much as we pay to physical health. We are still flouting our gym wear and the memberships that we have, and we go gung-ho about the 6 apps that everybody has. I think we need to do a lot more in schools and colleges, a lot more. I'm not saying it's not being done, and I think we are making progress. But I'm hoping that the current generation of young parents, will be far more open to it because they've seen a little bit of it. So today we get a lot of people bringing their young children, which young means anywhere from 10 to 18, 20, 22. And it's the parents who bring them and bring them. So it's a good sign. I think it's a good sign, but like any other thing, the woods are lovely, dark and deep, and we have a long way to go. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to know how would you categorize your book? In the sense, would you call it a self-help book? Or would you call it a self-improvement book? What would you use? What is the category that you would use to describe your book?
I always say in my class, I don't want to put a label on anything. I don't want to put a label. So if you ask me personally, I don't know if you will put this in the interview or not, but personally, this is a self-actualizing book. It was something I had to do, and I had to get it out because my lectures were going very well. My family, my friends whom I used to talk to, all of them would say, why aren't you writing a book? And I would say, give me 10,000 people to talk to, I'm happy. But so I really don't know whether it's a self-help group or I think it's just a book for you to think about. It's something for you to think about. I believe and I hope it will be fairly eternal for some time to come, because I've chosen 5 I's, which I distills now. As usual, friends will say, you could have put this and you could have put that. And like a good academic, management academic, I have to justify my action. So I'll say, yeah, I could always put it under this I or that I. I would think this is a book for anyone to just read through. It's a very simple language. It's very conversational, I believe, in content. Something for you to mull over your personal journey. Now, that's the best. I don't want to call it a self-help group or a self-help book or any particular book, to be honest.
Okay. So the other thing that I wanted to ask is that, the book has 5 ways. Do you think that, when you're reading a book like this, when you're trying to get to somewhere, because it says it's a trail, and like I said, the words that you have used are trail, map, GPS, right? Which is talking about a destination of some sorts. Whether or not the journey is more important or the destination is more important, obviously that's a very different thing. And you've also talked about it, that it's a continuous thing. It can't stop. Our goals never stop at, you achieve one and that's it. You're successful. Now there's nothing else that you'll do in your life. That never happens. So what I was going for is that when you say, there are 5 ways, or these are 5 ways that you have felt, with all of your experience, that can help, let's say somebody like me, I'm the reader of this book, achieve success and happiness. So do you think sometimes people who approach books like these, or let's say this book, we also get trapped into this whole idea of, okay, I have been given 5 ways, that's it. That's it. And this has to then work out. Like, do you think that in terms of happiness and success, both, when we try to read more or we try to know more, sometimes we also get trapped in the problem where we think, okay, this is how it has to go. This is how it has to work out. If it says 3 steps, then 3 steps, that's it. But, where I'm coming from is that even in recipes, if it says, this gram of X ingredient, a lot of us, I'm sure, has the experience that sometimes even if you put it exactly how it says, it never does come out exactly the way, let's say, it's put in the picture there, right? So do you think somewhere we should also take a step back and be less serious about how many steps and how many ways in which I'm going to arrive? That we need to be more aware of the journey, the personal journey to whatever, we are looking for.
I'm laughing because you used a recipe. In my strategy classes, I keep telling the students, managers are just chartwalas. And I actually say this, don't kid yourself. You're in IIM. This is what a boss told me when I was 31 years old. Ramesh, don't fool yourself. You're like a chartwala. And what does a chartwala do? What is a recipe? He says he has 5 ingredients with which to play around with, 8 ingredients to play around with. And his menu has 200 items. So what is the chartwala skill? The chartwala skill is to know what recipe, what ingredient can do what.
Right.
And how much of that ingredient do you need for your situation? So customer A wants too much of tikka or chili, somebody wants sweet, so I know what to do with the ingredients. So in the same way, these are 5 things you have. It's not to say these are exclusive to all other things. No, absolutely not. Number 1. Number 2, now that you mention it, I've never thought about it, but you mentioned it. This book does not say do this or do that. Right. It does not say get up in the morning, does not say sing bhajans or do yoga or take a walk or meditate or none of those things. I think that comes from my 30 years of counseling, where we do not tell a person do or don't do anything. But having said that, if I may quickly let's look at the 5 I's. What I'm saying is these are 5 things that if you have, it'll help you lead a comfortable journey. Your journey will be comfortable wherever you want success pegged at. As I said, you may want to be so let's look, I just quickly say, let's say the first I for me is integrity. Now, why do I say this? Because I say that in your journey in life, you will reach crossroads, you will reach forks. And unfortunately, what does the GPS do? The GPS says, yes, if you take this, it's going to take 10 minutes longer. If you take this, it's going to take 100 minutes longer. This is blocked and so on. for me, my talk started with my first time. For the first 5 years, I would only talk about integrity. And as a marketing person, what I said is, when you are at crossroads, and why is this crossroad important? For the simple reason, our life is one continuous journey of problem solving and conflict resolution. I keep giving the simple example. I need to get up in the morning. Should I wear a blue shirt this morning, should I wear a collared shirt or should I wear a round neck shirt? I mean, it's a decision I have to take. It's as simple as that. Now, most of our decisions are simple, uncomplicated. We move on with life. But there are some times when there are some more difficult decisions. I am working in a company which is saying fairness screams, if you're not fair, you're doomed as a woman. Okay, this is now I am a product manager. I have to run this ad. And it goes everything against my grain of thinking. But as you said, I need to pay my EMI. I can't be happy under those circumstances. Let's be very clear about it. However much my bank balance is. Now, that is where I need integrity. For me, is defining brand you. Who am I as a brand? And it helps us take these decisions and live peacefully with ourselves. I don't mind taking a 30% cut, but I will refuse to say that all dark women are doomed. I'm putting it very crudely, but I guess with youngsters, I find that's the only way to get a point across.
Right.
Don't sugarcoat your statements, because these are hard-hitting requirements. Right. So I am saying and I have taken my decisions at 3 stages in life purely based on this when I look back. As I said, case studies are written after the event and we have to retrofit our answers. And I have thought about this, and the book gives some examples. And I said, what has governed my life in general? And I realized this was a strong thing, which I had not thought about in any serious manner. So when I'm at a crossroad, and unfortunately, like Indian roads, life is like an Indian road. The board always comes after the crossing as to where to go. It's never at the crossing. So after you cross, you say, I should have done this. I wish I had gone there. Yeah, but life is not so charitable. And you are on a rapids. You are on a whitewater rafting, not like us. You don't have the luxury, and the world we are living in is an extremely intolerant world. We don't have time. Nobody has time for you. As long as you're doing well, people love you. Mm-hmm. And you're working, you talked about pressure. We worked on annual targets. Today, you're working on weekly targets. My daughter is a senior executive thanks to the COVID, I'm seeing her work. And I said, this is bizarre. I mean, how long can you keep on talking about targets? When are you going to do work? Right. But this is the world we live in. So integrity is that. The second one I've learned is, if people decide whether you're going to be happy or not. I don't think money can give you comfort. Money can give you material, hedonistic satisfaction. And money cannot buy you happiness. If money could buy you happiness, antidepressants would not be a multi-billion-dollar industry, because it's only the rich who take these drugs. The poor can't afford them in any case. And I give you in my example of the guys who committed suicide, rich, successful, doing extremely well, would have been the envy of the world, just ended their lives. So the second thing is, have you got a network of people? And my book talks about so many things that today you have to be worried about. The social media. We're talking about the social media, and it's not a great thing. If you see the examples, you're talking about loneliness, you're talking about poverty elimination will give you 5% improvement in mental health. Improvement in mental health will give you significant improvement in productivity. We're talking about statistics which say women are more scared of loneliness more than dying of cancer and a whole lot of other things. So I'm saying, think about this. The third I is, I think for India is very, very important, if not the rest of the world. We have made a virtue out of a vice called jugaad. We think jugaad is a great thing. Jugaad kar denge. Jugaad is fixing something when you didn't do it right the first time, because we didn't have our heart in it. We didn't put our heart and soul in it. I said, put your heart into what you do. If you don't like it, get out of it or change it. But do not, because you cannot be happy at home and unhappy in the office. You cannot compartmentalize your life. You're either happy or you're unhappy. You're either comfortable or you're not comfortable. I cannot enjoy my work and come to a lousy home, and vice versa. So one of the things is put your heart into what you do, then it consumes you. So I've actually used some examples, and I've given, I've used my own examples of passion versus obsession. Steve Jobs and Apple has been a great, one of my great, examples of completely possessed people. And it's not only Steve Jobs. You look at a Jeff Bezos, you look at a Bill Gates, you look at an Elon Musk. I'm talking about the corporate world. Mm-hmm. You look at painters, you look at musicians. It's involvement. It's putting their 100% into what you do. You can be a carpenter, you can be a milkman, you can be a gardener. Are you giving it your best? That's third. The fourth one is again very relevant to today's world, and is going to be more relevant in the year. If you don't learn, you're outdated. You're out of business. We could go on with the same technology. You have studied, and you said you were born around this time I started. Let's look at it. You look at your school days and look at your college days. I don't think you would have had a Twitter and an Instagram even in your college days. Right. Forget about school. Mm-hmm. Today, a 10-year-old can't do without it. My 3-year-old grandson knows how to access photographs, and he doesn't know anything else, but he knows how to do that. The point I'm trying to make is we are going to be out of fashion if you don't have an open mind. Open mind. And open mind is what is about growth. In that book, again, I've talked about reskilling, upskilling, and all, how many people are. But essentially, and if I use the word learning in a slightly larger context, am I open to ideas? Am I open to listening to people? So what do I say? You need 3 qualities if you want to be relevant. You should be hungry for knowledge. You should be honest that I don't know. And you should have humility to accept from people. And the last one is impact. I asked did I make you use this word very much when we were chatting? Absolutely. I think it is the most powerful word. What difference have I made to the world around me? And you said it absolutely right. We are the privileged people. Anybody reading my book is a privileged person. That's the reality. Mm-hmm. And therefore, have I made a difference? And, I deal with a lot of high-powered graduates, and I read their resumes. And when I read their resumes, it's all about market share, market cap. I said, that's what you're paid for. Then you haven't done anything great. But have you made a difference? So this is why I think this book should be relevant and help you deal with it. But having said that, you're the chartwala. You decide how much of what you want.
Right.
And work on this in whichever manner you think.
Sir, thank you so much for talking to me today. This is already a fascinating book, and like I said, it has helped me already because I had to read it for the interview as well. And so thank you, sir, for talking to us.
Thank you.